chose this story
Sorry.
is not just because it's a relatively unknown story, but also because the story kind of resonated with me a little bit. Especially when I was a kid, I kind of had a couple similar moments to Kalamsen, as we'll learn about in a minute. And so Kalamsen, like a couple people on this call, was born into a very spiritual family. Both of his parents were extremely Jain, and every day they wouldn't eat um, until 48 minutes after sunrise, and this was called Novkarsi. And then every day they would also observe one Samayak for 48 minutes. And so they were very Jain people. They did these things every day in addition to many other things, and they were hopeful that Kamalsen would follow in their steps. But unfortunately, as they realized, he didn't really have much passion for religion. He wasn't very spiritual, and most of all, he refused to take any vows. So he would never participate with his parents in doing the samaks. He would never do the novkarsis every morning. So his parents were, a little bit upset at this because they wanted him to follow in this spiritual path. And his parents wanted to try different ways to get him interested. And when different acharyas were coming to visit their town, they asked Komosen to follow along with them and listen to the lectures. And so, after a lot of convincing, he finally agreed to come to the lectures with his parents. So the first acharya was a very traditional acharya who was a very learned acharya, and in his lectures he spoke about Jain topics such as heaven, hell, misery, and Kevalgyan. And so these were very theoretical topics in a way. And for someone like Kamal who was still a child at that time and didn't have much interest in Jainism, he didn't really pay attention to them much. And so when his parents asked him what he learned, he didn't really respond with much because he didn't learn anything new because he wasn't interested in these topics. But the second Acharya, his name was Acharya Gunasagar Suri. He was a very different type of Acharya. In his lectures, he tried to appeal to the common people. So he spoke and he told a lot of different stories with various different messages and topics, such as bravery, humility, like dealing with your emotions, and stories like that that had some sort of religious message at the end. And so Komosen, as a kid, loved hearing stories, and so he loved these lectures, and he came every day to listen to whatever Acharya Gunasagar story had to say. And at the farewell ceremony, before this Acharya would leave, people were lining up to take vows, sort of as a form of respect to this Acharya who had taught them so much. And when it got to Komosen's turn, and the Acharya asked him what vows he would take, he jokingly replied that he would not tell a lie unless it was the day or night, and he would never eat a watermelon whole in his mouth. And so these were obviously not very great vows, and the Acharya was very shocked to hear this. And when Komosen saw that reaction, he felt sorry for what he said, and he decided to observe a more serious vow. And so he told the Acharya that he would not eat or drink until he would see the bald head of the potter in the town. And this potter was named Simolo. And so this was, of course, a very strange vow, but it was a vow nonetheless. And so the Acharya was very proud of him. And so one day, Komosen was getting ready to eat lunch, and his mom reminded him of this vow that he had taken. And so he ran in the forest to go find this potter to see the bald head, and then only he could eat. So as we can see in this picture here, he's to the back of this potter. He sees the head and he yells out, "Yes, I have seen it," in response to seeing this head so he could finally eat. But at the same time, that potter was he was like unearthing clay for his pots, and he had found a lot of gold and jewels. And so when he heard Kamosen say, "Yes, I have found it," he thought that he was referring to the gold and jewels that he had just found. And so he offered half of this wealth to Komosen for him to not tell anybody. And Komosen obviously did not understand what was happening, but he gladly accepted that and went home. And so later on, he realized finally what had happened, and he thought to himself, a simple vow that I took as a joke has resulted in this like newfound wealth. Imagine what could happen to me if I actually started taking more serious vows. And that's kind of the end of the story is when he has this realization that vows are really important, right? And they can lead to a lot of good things. And so the overall significance of the story is that these vows can mean so much to us and that they're really important in taking them and also following through on them. And I wrote during Paryushan here, but really anytime in our lives, we have so many opportunities to take vows. The one that I mentioned earlier was no karsi, where we don't eat until 48 minutes after sunrise, but we can also do joviar and DVR, where we don't eat 40. So we stop eating 48 minutes before sunset, and then we don't eat until Novkarsi the next day. And there's so many other vows we can take, like not walking on grass or avoiding specific foods. Really, the list is endless. And so there's just so many opportunities for us to do that. And especially during Paryushan, we should try and do that more than ever. So that's just the moral of this story, and I hope you guys enjoy it.